We are continuing our budget committee, and we're going to start off with public delegations. I would ask the delegations to remember we have a heavy agenda tonight, and we have 7 to 9 p.m. scheduled for budget, so I'm going to ask everyone to respect the 5-minute time frame. If we could start with delegations, first up is we have from the Vales of Humber, Azad Goyet's group asked for a delegation. So who's ever speaking on behalf of your delegation, or if all of you want to come up.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor Patrick Brown and Council, for giving the Vales of Humber area residents and fellow friends to delegate together in budget meeting. So I want to introduce a couple of my friends, Devendra Chawla, Nan Humber, and Pinkesh.
Sandeep Authority.
I want to say, while many people dream of owning a home in Brampton, and many are discouraged by the complaints about rising property tax, and residents are in threat about escalating costs beyond their control. Brampton homeowners pay more than the people who own home in Toronto, Mississauga, Markham, Milton, Richmond Hill, Vaughan, Oakville, Burlington, and Aurora. So, where we should live if we want to enjoy the low property tax and better services? Like Toronto is paying only 0.6347%, Markham is 0.6598%, Milton 0.6857%, Richmond Hill is 0.688, and Vaughan is 0.691647. So how much we are paying? In Brampton during 2019, the property tax rate sits around 0.99.0771%, and the average home price sits around $744,590. Even in Mississauga in 2019, the tax rate sits around 0.8014%. Vale of Humber, where we all belongs, no home is less than $1 million. If we will see the impact this year, we are hoping that it won't be less than 1 million and over. The home prices are over there in the market values from 1.4 million to 4.6 million in that area. So even if we take an average of $1 million, we are paying somewhere $10,000 a year as per MPEC. Affordability, because of the rising cost, affordability is a big concern to the escalating cost, including the house prices, property tax, postal code discrimination for auto insurance, daily living expenses, including food. Also, due to the poor services like healthcare and education, not having our full-fledged own local grown university with medical school, residents are forced to analyze the other options to make life affordable, including move out. We are hearing every day that people want to move out from Brampton because of the issues like we are having in daily life, including the property tax. Under the current scenario, and even a $1 increase in property tax would add the option to move out from Brampton. If the proposed budget meeting is approved, would result in Brampton property tax increase of 0.5%. I think there is an increase of 0.5% for the budget estimate. This is equivalent to an average of $27 per household to fund the city 2020 budget. On our property tax bill, we the taxpayer will see a tax increase of 1.8% on an average of $90 per household. This is a combined total including the city budget 0.5%, region of Peel and Peel District School Board. Honorable Mayor Patrick Brown and Council, residents are requesting, please find the way to attract more businesses and investments and work tirelessly and united to make life in Brampton affordable. It's a time to work together for building Brampton. Hence, we all the residents are requesting a total freeze, even requesting to lower the rates to make the life affordable in Brampton. Thank you.
58 mark. Did any other members of your delegation wanted to speak?
So anybody want to say anything? Nan, you want to say something?
Okay. Okay, well, thank you for coming here tonight. Thank you for participating in our budget debate.
Thank you.
I see one question, actually. Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much for coming to delegate here today at budget. I had a question to staff. A number of years ago, we did a municipal tax competitive study. Is it possible we can dust that off, see how the relevance of it, and bring it back?
Through the chair, so we never did a municipal competitive study. There is an independent study that's done by BMA Consulting that does a comparison of similar properties with similar attributes that compares property taxes for municipalities. And we've shown that to council in the past.
We've shown that to council in the past?
Correct.
We don't have that, we haven't seen that this budget cycle?
We have not.
Okay, can we have a look at that?
Sure.
And just based on numbers and stuff, is it fair to say that homes are cheaper in Brampton compared to Mississauga, Caledon, surrounding municipalities?
Through the chair, from an impact assessment standpoint, yes, they are. Vaughan, Toronto, City of Toronto, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
And David, the chart you put up last week said BMA, the chart that we had, but it said BMA Consultants that ranked property. Is that a different BMA Consultants?
That's the same firm that does that, but the request was for the tax rates only.
Okay.
So there's, I believe what Mr. Palashi is referring to is it actually shows a similar type of household, a similar size of household, like a 1,300 square foot, 2,000 square foot home, a larger executive home, and it compares the property taxes for municipalities based on impact assessment using the tax rates that you would have saw up above.
Okay, I see what you mean.
Yeah, Mayor Patrick, my friend want to add something in the.
Hello, my name is Sandeep Adwari and live in same area. So I like to say absolutely the add-on Michael point of view. So if we can have the different cities numbers, if it is matched with us, or maybe compare with that, what is the difference between those two cities, right? Because it's if you see the Richmond Hill and this area, it's a similar. If it is similar, then also you have the tax cut also be the similar. It's not more than that. But right now it's paying a lot. So if we can compare those different cities and the area, that will be good. And maybe a household income, if we can consider those things. So that would be a good say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your coming today to be part of our budget committee.
Thank you.
Next up on our list is Dave Capel from New Brampton. And Kapil Holdings, Inc.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dave Capel. My tie's not right? Looking good? First of all, I want to thank the council, the staff, citizens who give me the opportunity to speak here. I made some notes. I didn't prepare everything I was going to say, so I'm going to speak a lot from the heart because I think the city matters to each one of us a lot. And the fact we are here at this time of the evening, it means a lot. I want to congratulate, first of all, our council for last year for a 0% tax increase. I know there's a bunch of people, actually not a bunch of people, there's a big percentage of the city is concerned that the 0% tax increase is going to affect the services. Yes, it will, if there's no plan behind. If there's a plan behind, I think we're off the races. I think, something what the gentleman mentioned earlier, property tax increases affect real estate values. Property tax increases affect businesses coming to the city of Brampton. So if we want to improve our economic development, if we want to improve our employment, we need to get control on taxes. As a business owner, when we see things, we are in trouble. In other words, if I'm overspending, the first thing we look at is how to increase revenues and how to control expenses. City, typically, I would look at my product, what I'm selling. In your case, you're selling the city. Because if your city is attractive, your city has right infrastructure, you will have people who will come here and invest. And if they invest, they put towers up, they put buildings up, that's more revenues for you guys, for our city. And that's how we don't have to have a tax increase. So I'll give you a small example. There's a building in front of my office. It's known as Altera. Years ago, when I bought my building, there was this little small building there, and actually they demolished it, became a bit of a land. And I think the tax for the property was about $5,000 a year, 5 or 6,000, somewhere around there. Well, Altera came, they decided to put a tower up there. Roughly 300 units into that building went. Average unit probably pays about $3,000 a year taxes. Times 300 units, we're looking at $900,000. That's just one building. We just increase revenues for the city of Brampton by $1 million a year. So if our focus becomes 20 buildings over the next 5 years, that's $20 million extra revenues. If we can go 60 buildings, that's $60 million extra revenues. Because we already have a lot of things in place. We just need to make it look nice. One of the biggest problems we have, and you've noticed New Brampton complains about downtown, the reason is some folks will think, well, few of us guys have real estate in downtown. You know what? We want to build more over here so we can give city those millions of dollars of taxes. But development can't come if the infrastructure is not there. So that's one way we need to look at, increase our revenues. So we need to invite developers, we need to invite businesses so they can come to the city by improving our infrastructure. It's just not infrastructure in place. We have a Kapil Memorial Hospital. It's crucial for the development of the city. We need to have Kapil Memorial Hospital, have 500, 600 beds, have an emergency department. It's crucial. Like we, as citizens, we pay same taxes actually. We pay right up there. Toronto pays $6,000 a year, and $1 million home, they pay $6,000 a year. Brampton pays $9,900 a year. We pay more taxes. Our income tax is the same as everybody else. Our provincial tax is the same as everybody else. But guess what? I've got a long lineup in the hospital. So we need a hospital, but more importantly, that hospital also brings economic development. Extremely crucial. That affects every single ward. So when we have the downtown core improve, that affects every single ward in the city of Brampton. So we have a vested interest to improve that part. Connection to, I know you guys are fighting very hard and trying very hard to get direct connection to airport. Kudos. You bring that connection in, you are going to attract 40, 50, 60, 80 more buildings. That's 40, 60, 80 more $1 million revenues to the city of Brampton. Developers want to be here. Businesses want to be here. If you have a nice connection, certainly it attracts businesses because they can service their employees. The employees can't come here until the transportation system is not proper. Flood mitigation. Downtown core, we could easily have 20 buildings here if flood was taken care of. I know you guys are working on it. I know there's a study going on about it, but I think if we get some departments in place, let's fight, let's fix it. Say, you know what, over the next 3 years or the next 5 years, we're going to sort this out. So we can develop buildings over here. So we can have extra revenues coming in. And that's why your services won't get affected. I know if there's a plan in place, and I think when I meet the staff, I meet the council, this is the first time I've come across the United Council, people who are concerned, who love their city, they're passionate. Every time I sit here, the questions some of the councillors are asking is amazing. And the staff is motivated. When I talk to some of these staffs at different times, they operate as if it's their own business. They don't operate as if they're working for the city. And that's kudos to us. So we got to take full advantage of that.
Just to give you maybe a 30-second warning to wrap up.
Quickly, I just want to say, if I may want an extra minute, if it's okay with you guys. Is that okay?
Council, can we have an extra minute?
Okay. I think city did a declared emergency regarding the hospital. I think city need to think about the same things for a number of things, such as flood issue. That's a life risk issue for the city of Brampton, for downtown core. We need to look at that as a flood issue, as an emergency. We need to look at it as declare emergency with respect to the transportation all day go. Why? Because we see tankers going through here. You know what happened in Mississauga? That needs to change. So if that fixes, it sorts that problem out. That's an emergency for our citizens. It's very important for us. Having said that, I think I've covered most of my points.
Thank you so much. We have two questions for you, or maybe, down to one. Councillor Singh.
Yeah, I just want to say that I think you're preaching to the choir here on this council. I think you have a supportive council when it comes to density in particular as well. Council's been pretty supportive of dense development. You're right, that also helps balance the tax base. It's about putting the proper infrastructure in place for that development. So that's why we're doing a bunch of things, whether it's Queen Street Corridor, investing in public transit so that people want to move to downtown. But I just wanted to say I share many of your concerns. And the hospital, we did declare an emergency, and many councilors in their individual ways are working on trying to get that emergency room at Peel Memorial. So it's all about making sure we have the infrastructure and support to support that density, but we do have a council that I think has shown over and over they're supportive.
And I completely agree with you guys, and that's why you see a smile on my face all the time when I come here, because I'm very encouraged by what you guys are doing. It's moving in the right direction, and it's awesome.
Great. And Dave, how many businesses does New Brampton represent?
Our board alone has, we have 11 board members. We have about 17 advisory committee. And then our founders, we have about 60 founders. And also 4,000 supporters New Brampton has, and that is without any marketing. I think we might be at 5,000 now. Nobody's keeping a tab, but I know people.
That's a lot of real estate you're marketing to the world.
Yes, it's very important, yes.
Councillor Fertini with a question.
Thank you for coming. And I've always been saying that, exactly what you said for the last 3 years on development. So we have an issue here. Coming along, people come in, they bring condos or a building, and then we get all these residents saying to us, I don't want this in my backyard. We go to that place and they don't want it. And they're always attacking us, they don't want development. So how do we manage to lower these taxes? You look at Burnethorpe and Highway 10, pulls in 1.6 billion in property tax, that block. But we don't do that in Brampton here. So we get also, the residents have to understand, if you want to keep the property taxes, so we need to up development. That's what brings in millions of dollars. And you're absolutely right. So we have to start standing up to these people, say, where's a condo, where's a townhouse, where's a tower? We have to start saying yes.
I completely agree with you. I think it's just a communication to the residences. I think if, what we are doing is much bigger than a single household and a small neighborhood. And I think it's crucial for them to get communication from us. That's part of our job, I think, as council, as staff, to let them know.
Okay, Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Dave, for coming. So, Dave, I agree with a lot of things you said, and I think that when council makes decisions, especially on density, we need to strike a balance. And when we're talking about redevelopment, I think this council would support density in the downtown, density where there are transit hubs. But a lot of the times we get our residents coming out in the droves and the numbers when we're talking about density in infill sites, where we don't have the support of public transit or recreation centers or things like that. We're a community that was built around the sprawl, built around the car, and until our infrastructure comes up to be able to support those infill sites in particular, I think we have to kind of side with residents that live in those areas. But you're bang on when it comes to redevelopment of certain areas and density in areas that are there for support. And I don't have to tell you, you know this already.
If I can say something, I think like your Reimagine program, I think is so crucial for the city, not for downtown, it's for the city. Because that's when your residents will see what you guys are doing. Right now they can't see much. There's a lot of planning happening. And I think once the shovels start to hit the ground, they see what's happening, and once the first part is done, that will change the attitude of the residents, homeowners. Because they will realize, okay, these guys are doing this, look how our downtown looks. Certainly it changes, one of the toughest things I feel sorry for, like even our mayor and some of the councillors, you guys are going out and marketing Brampton outside Canada. And the sad part is, you do an awesome marketing job. You come back, the business owner comes over here, he comes to downtown. It's not the best looking downtown. And after they finished over here, they go to Mississauga, they go to Vaughan, they go other cities, and then they say, you know what, maybe we should go there. So guess what? You've done all that work for Vaughan, Mississauga, and everywhere else. And so, because this is the first place they come, your city hall is right here. And any city's heart is your downtown. City is represented by their downtown. Just imagine if New York was not New York, would US be considered as in New York? In India, Mumbai would not be popular if it wasn't from Mumbai the way it is. So certain things are very important. So our downtown is crucial to bring all these things in. So the infrastructure is what's missing. The flood issue is one huge thing. If you guys can do two things, get your flood issue fixed and have a connection to All Day Go or have a connection to the airport, God help you, you will know what to do with the development here. And it's like citizens will go crazy because they will start to see taxes come down, let alone going up. Because you will have surpluses coming in, you won't know what to do with the funds unless you've got some unscrupulous people there. That's a different issue. I don't think we do.
And I don't disagree with you, Dave. I really don't. I just, there's other areas of Brampton that are ripe for the redevelopment, and Bramley Go is a perfect, opportunity. And there's more things that are coming, some great things that are coming soon, hopefully, sooner rather than later. But you're right, downtown is a piece of the pie, a piece amongst a lot of other pieces.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Councillor Palashi. Just one final question, Dave. You talked about that building that was vacant that you managed to fill. How much, for your members in New Brampton, how much of an issue is it when you're trying to market a building? How often do people look at the tax rate, and how big of an issue is that for you?
Oh, it's a huge issue. It's a huge issue because we pass that on. It's a huge issue for us as landlords. Because if my TMI is too high, I cannot have business coming in. TMI is, taxes, management, and maintenance, and all that.
Have you ever had someone pass on a building?
Oh, of course. Absolutely. Okay. All the time. And the worst part is, we have reduced, we rent spaces here at $10-15 a square foot. It's ridiculous. Toronto is $80 a square foot. So I got to keep on reducing my rent to make up there. And so certainly a developer says, why the hell do I want to go to Brampton? Because I don't make any money there. You got a condominium building comes up over here. The cost of building, for example, Cartuzola's putting a building up in Symphony. His cost is probably around $650, $700 a square foot. It's no different from Toronto, same cost. But Toronto, he'll get $1,000 a foot. Over here, he'll be lucky if he gets $650 a foot. And the reason is because of the infrastructure is not in place. So these people won't come easily.
And do you have any vacant buildings right now that you're trying to get tenants in?
Yes, I've got a building which has been, half of the building has been vacant for almost 4 years.
And it's part of the problem?
It's part of the problem, absolutely. Okay. Part of the problem is taxes, part of the problem, infrastructure is part of the problem, the way the downtown looks, part of the problem. We've improved our the buildings, and I think most of you know that. Every building, I take pride in my buildings, and whatever we buy normally crappy buildings, and we make them beautiful. And when I have a tough time renting it out, it's a big message that you can't, and taxes are playing part, absolutely.
Okay, well, thank you for that candid response. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Next up on our list is Ravi Kagaspang, a Brampton resident and small business owner.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My case is very simple. 15 years ago, when I wanted to buy a house, I was living in North York. I came to Brampton because that time everything was good, everything's fine. So it took me about 3 years for me to get a house. I bought a house. At that time, the property tax was about $4,800. Now I pay close to $6,100. When I decided to open my business, I opened my business in Brampton. I employ 20 people in fire prevention. And I had another cousin who opened up a business 5 years ago. Last month he moved out. He went to Etobicoke. Because I'm at Kenview, where 427 is. On the other side is Toronto. He pays less taxes. My tax went on high. So I own a business, I pay taxes. I own about 18 to 17, 18 vehicles, insurance is high. Right? My house went up. I have a unit which I bought for my business, tax went up. I'm not here to paint a very bleak picture, but every penny counts now, especially when things are getting a little bit harder now. And then, unfortunately, when a time comes for me for an investment, when I thought of buying a condo, I'm not happy to say I bought a condo in Toronto. Because I only, it clearly says here 0.6, and here I'm paying in Brampton 0.99 or whatever. If you guys increase it, we are you guys in par with Whitby, Hamilton, and Oshawa. Right? Now think about it. When my community from Scarborough, about 15,000 Tamil community moved to Toronto, to Brampton, and what's the first thing that when we get together, we talk, hey, the taxes have gone up. That's all I can say. On behalf of the residents, I'm here. I'm a business owner. I have my own house here. I bought a condo here. I don't mind developing it. Right now, my wife, who is an accountant, who always do the calculation, said, let's move the other side of 427 so we pay something. Believe me, 1,800 to 2,000 square foot a unit, that's a lot of saving. That is a lot of saving. My house is 2,800 square feet. I can only sell it for 1,000. In Toronto, 2,800 square feet is much, much more, and they pay less taxes. How do I don't know, I'm not a math guy, but you guys figure it out. I totally understand the city has to grow, city needs infrastructure, city needs fire trucks, ambulance, everything. That's where you guys come in. All I do is I employ 20 people, I need your support. I need to keep my costs down. I'm not getting young, I'm getting old, I have 4 kids, all 4 kids are here, and I want my kids to grow here, have their family in Brampton. Because I came to Brampton 15 years ago, I will stay in Brampton. At the same time, I know you guys are doing an excellent job, fantastic job. I thank you, but please consider before you raise any taxes, how much impact it's going to have. Case in point, again, another prevention company just moved other side, and he's always telling me, oh, the next unit is vacant, you pay less taxes. It's always about taxes. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you, Ravi. Seeing no questions, I'll just say we can't do much about insurance. That's a provincially regulated department.
But everything counts, right?
But we'll do our best on taxes. But thank you for your delegation. Thank you for participating in the Budget Committee.
Thank you, sir.
Next up on our list is Jovinder Sodhi, a Brampton resident. And Jovinder, I forget the name of the Residents Association?
Homeowners Welfare Association, Concerned Residents of Brampton.
Okay.
I think that is about one. I have 2 comments before we start the delegation, just a quick points. When we're talking about the vertical buildings in Brampton, especially in downtown, there is already congestion. There is already a problem in this area. People are driving around Brampton. We need to look outside the box. We need to look at the other areas, west side all the way to Winston Churchill. We have Highway 50, where already development been happening in other town. We have a much more land. If we make full development in one area, we'll have more challenges than what we have today. Infrastructure, yes, we need it. Going back to my delegation, on behalf of Homeowners Welfare Association and Concerned Residents of Brampton. Okay, of course, we are in desperate need of tax freeze in Brampton, of course, because over the years, we could see the chart on the side. Brampton is on the top list. Property taxes, auto insurance, we name it, we all challenges are. There is no university, college. Both the kids are in universities outside of Brampton. So a common man who is struggling, working hard, they struggle to live, struggle to survive, struggle to bring the food on their table. majority of us in that condition. So another one is, in order to attract more businesses, employment opportunities in Brampton, we should have a similar tax rates of surrounding cities. We need to look at the whole role model that Markham, Vaughan, even Caledon, Bolton part of it, Mississauga. There is something they are doing different than us. There is nothing wrong in learning and adopting the good techniques, good perspective, someone else is using it successfully. It is unfair for the residents for low and fixed income groups. There are seniors lives in it because it's called as a sleep city because employment opportunities are very low. If we have it, it's a minimum wage opportunities. And when you're talking about property tax and all auto insurance, you're struggling. And also seniors, another part because they struggle. So we need to have focus on the tax part for sure to lower down. Another area I would like to touch base when you're talking about this, allocating the funds, we wanted to focus on BRT. And I raised in this council, I think maybe more than 10 times, the issue on Highway 7 Queen Street to connect to Toronto because of employment opportunities. It's a repeat issue. Because of the employment opportunities are outside Brampton. We want to keep our youth here after school to participate actively. We need arrangements for them. We're looking for a rapid transit on Queen Street to connect Toronto because a lot of students in the morning and evening, and today is a good day, but generally in winter, they have to wait for 4 to 5, 6 buses to get a transit. I hope council is focused on what I'm trying to point out here. Please. And we need a north and south connection on Mayfield, up to the Mayfield, at least to connectivity between north, south, east, west. I also request to look at, as the council has last term did for the seniors, the students, we need a kind of some subsidized transit system for the students that will reduce number of cars on the roads, reduce number of accidents, reduce number of lives to be lost or major part of the body lost. That will help. We need to focus on that part. So that way we have a safe community around us. And increase the transit time, weekends, evenings, late hour working. We have a lot of international students. We have a lot of new Canadians coming in. They love to be part of the Brampton community. So we need to focus on giving them tools so they cannot afford the car due to the insurance and new drivers, but that will help them to have a habit to use the public transit. East side, west, north, south. We need to focus on that, increasing the timeline, especially rush hours. Evening time, maybe 11 o'clock, somebody's finishing a shift. No other option they have other than calling a taxi. If you make $80 for a day and $35 you give it to a taxi, you're doing a free job after taxes. So please focus on that. There's another topic I would like to bring in, is affordable housing and second dwelling. We have been raising these concerns because of new Canadians are making Brampton as their home. And no penalties until the new policy is established. We hear from councillors. We had a town hall on September 15 where we have raised all the concerns, valid concerns, genuine concerns which residents face every day. We're not asking to violate any safety standard, but same time, we have been asking for no penalties. If someone is willing to legalize or register the basement apartment with the city, shouldn't be a penalty on them. Shouldn't be any penalty on them. Encourage them to be part of it and increase some taxes. So the city's avenue gonna increase, as well as people will have a safe and sound housing for new Canadians. We can't afford the people sitting on the street, sleeping on the streets, right? And we ask for its technology-based scanners for plumbing and electrical work. We need a checklist for inspectors, because inspector come in today, oh, you need to fix this one. Next week again, oh no, you have to do this one too. Next week, you have to do this one. I'm a professional engineer. I've been working in quality assurance and continuous improvement
So,
over.
Javinder, we're about a minute and a half over.
Yes, we'll finish it.
Okay.
If you don't have
No, no,
more
no,
than 5 minutes, that's
No,
not a
no, no,
problem.
it's okay. We did a check with council if we have the indulgence to for another minute. Councilor Fortini said yes, so
And planning and enforcement, like enforce policy, I will go faster. No more double standard. Like when we are talking about developers, they have a freeway. They make a side entrance today, it's legal. Tomorrow, homeowner comes in, buy the house, it's illegal. $25,000 penalty is a very high penalty when people are struggling to bring a bread and butter on there, and they are helping the city and the region to have affordable housing. The last part, and we all know, public safety. We know people feel, just recently there was a survey in Brampton Guardian, 4 out of 10 feel unsafe. The quality of life is going down. So I will not touch, we all know that, 20 million, I was at Queen's Park today, 20 million provincial government has released, and we are lobbying with our provincial leadership and the federal leadership to release more funds on public safety, to have the families safe at home when you're working, your seniors, your father, mother, or your young children feel safe. And just last part, I will quickly check. I had a discussion with Ruby Sota, the marks are there. Yes, all these topics, transit, interconnectivity, employment opportunity, are part of our council's submission. So federally, we are lobbying. Provincially, I went in today to the Queen's Park, spent whole day, take time off from my work. We're not being paid from neither the provincial leadership, nor the here. So we are lobbyists. We are trying to work for best interest of our city. And she has responded well, and hope the federal funding gonna come in. We are there to support the council for the right reasons. The last 2 questions I have it, before you have any question for me, is international trips. We encourage that the city council is going above and beyond, spending their personal time, weeks and weeks out to the other countries for the business. I think we should cross the border in United States. We need to cross to some cities. There are a lot of opportunities within the house. And I would like to have a white paper on the previous, because council before, all went to international trips for the business, for the good reasons. We need to have a white paper to release what was outcome from their work, what you expect from here, that in your trips, what you're gonna gain, and how much business is gonna come in, and we'll measure it next year, whether we are delivering up to the standard or we need to change our policies. That's all. Thank you very much for the 1 minute extra time. Any questions for me?
we have 2 questions. Javinder, first, Councilor Medeiros.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Sodi, for the delegation. Really, I sit here almost challenged to either keep quiet and be respectful, or be respectful and ask you a couple of questions in terms of clarification. So I've listened to 3 delegations always refer to City of Toronto, and they use it. So people understand that City of Toronto has something specific that we don't have.
Yes.
They have a Toronto City Act.
Exactly.
So they can raise taxes, and they have special powers that we don't have. So for us to be comparing us to Toronto already is not the same conversation. So that's one aside. So I don't know if you know that. So my question would be.
I know that. There's a double tax too when you purchase
Do you know
a house.
there's municipalities that you listed that don't offer all the services that we offer here at the City of Brampton? So that's another thing I would say. The third thing I would say, ask you in the form of a question. For example, what I've just read here is you want to increase service. So you want us to keep 0, but then if you want to keep increasing service. So I would ask you, you know already that transit is highly subsidized. We don't make money off transit.
Yes,
Okay.
I know that.
So, but you want us to keep increasing service. So I guess my question to you is, where do we cut? Give me something, because everyone's come here and asked us to don't raise property tax, but keep doing everything and actually increase service, increase investment, increase this.
Absolutely
So
right.
The question I have to you, give me something that you would suggest this council could consider for us taking away.
I
Just
would
a
love
question.
to. And thank you. It's a valid question. You know, when I was preparing this document, I felt it. And good you asked me this question. I'm really happy that someone asked me a valid question. When I use the word think outside the box. Let's not have a traditional approach of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 5, 7, 10. Look for efficiencies. Look for improvement initiatives. I have done lean manufacturing where run improvement programs, where you can improve the services within the staff. We have a huge workforce at City Hall and services. I guarantee you, for transit money, give me 1 month, let me work with the staff, we'll give you efficiencies, saved money. And it has to be a willingness to work on that project. We have delivered. At my workplace, we have delivered. And projects were initiated by the team members, and they move up. Those projects. It's doable. It's doable. It's 1 or 2% more, 3% more, which is doable. For such a huge budget, we need to look for where we can cut short the bureaucratic layers in there. I agree with a few of the previous delegations. I noticed they want vertical buildings. You need to have infrastructure to support them. Otherwise, those buildings will be empty. There's no tenancy here.
So through the mayor, I guess, again, and I thank you, and as he always says, no one owns a good idea. So I would encourage you to provide those ideas. If you say within a month, you will find efficiencies here at City Hall. I encourage you to share these ideas with transit, but you know, I'm very confident with the information that, you know, we receive, and I appreciate your feedback. But I think at the same time, you know, what I've heard so far in delegations is on one end, you want zero, but on the other end, let's keep doing everything under the sun. And there has to be
Balance.
some pragmatism. Yeah, that's right. There has
Balance
to be
and
the
prioritizing,
balance.
that's what I'm saying. It's not what I want to do it. We're asking for what is needed at the ground level, what the public is looking for, what the residents are looking for. Did you ever done a survey? What are the services that the most affected the people are?
Yeah.
5 turns waiting for a bus in minus 17 degrees, it's not fun.
Sure. And
Right?
just lastly, through the mayor, do you know to sustain a transit system, you need passengers? So if you don't
Yes.
have the density that you're saying that you don't want the density, then you're not going to make sustainable a transit system.
I said
But
diverse.
those are not my words,
I agree.
and smarter people than me tell me that. So I'm just regurgitating your
If we
words.
diverse the,
But I'm
the,
good. Thank
the,
you
the
so much.
vertical buildings, it will come out.
Yeah.
And the ridership has been increased drastically.
Yeah. Thank you.
Any questions?
Councillor Singh.
Last time also you laughed, my friend.
No.
What's happening?
I just want to say that when it comes to public transit, we are working on a lot of these files. We just released a letter for the Queen Street BRT as well. These things aren't always in our hands. We have Metrolinx, we have the province as well, and the federal government as well. But that is a high priority for this council, public transit. For secondary units, you have run town halls, others have run town halls as well. And we are making headway in there. You know, we're hiring just 13 inspectors, I believe, this year in our budget. Is that correct? 12 inspectors. They're going to be generalists, so it's not, as you're saying, one for one function, one for another. Generalist inspectors, and that's something that the community has wanted for some time. We have an update coming to council on March 27th as well. We've talked about some of those issues, whether it's the checklist, and then we're also talking about the parking, removing the parking requirement. It's not a confirmed decision, but we had our public consultation on February 10th, and that report's coming on June. So we are moving on these files. I think staff is showing that they have a genuine approach to this, and I understand for some time that residents also have concerns, but it's about doing it together, shoulder to shoulder. And so we are working on these things. You know, it doesn't happen right away, but I appreciate you coming to delegate for sure.
No, thank you very much. We have this council better, no hard words, than a previous one. It's a positive. I've been here, the words here, I'm gonna be taking a legal advice against you to sue you. I hear in this council these words from a mayor. Last term was a hard time. I was scared to come in this council. At least I boldly say what I feel openly. And I hope we understand there is a timeline too, but looking forward, working together. In Queen's Park, I didn't went for a free ride for a reason for our Brampton. Together, we can make a better Brampton for all of us. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Councillor Bowman has a question for you, Chavinder.
I tried to get you back, but
And
You're welcome.
he's probably gonna let you know
It's
about,
better than swing me, right? At least.
he's probably gonna let you know about Second Suites.
in part, yeah. Thank you for coming. You always make me smile whenever you come here. I enjoy seeing you get upset and,
I am not.
no, last council, there was a couple of really good ones you got really upset about.
No, I'm not.
Just one thing that you mentioned about the secondary suites.
Just-
We cannot tax them anymore. So if you were to buy a home and put in a secondary suite and get renters in the secondary suite, it's the same tax. It's the same property tax as you always pay. So, but there are now more people utilizing the services of the city of Brampton. So I just wanted to, we can't do that. The province won't let us.
Finish area increase will not help. When you are talking about, say, I have a 4,000 square feet house. I make a basement. My work, like finish area changes to 4,000 to 5,000 now.
Yeah.
That will increase the tax?
Only when MPAC gets word of it and MPAC comes and changes your evaluation, which happens every 4 years.
Hopefully we'll sit on some of the boards.
But I'm happy to take your address and send it to them, if you'd like me to do that. The other thing is, this council is a very forward-thinking council, including Michael.
Including Michael.
And we've got to look at what the young kids today want, what is going to be happening in 10 years. A lot of it has to do with changing environments. And right now, we're a little behind the curve on putting things in place, even to enact environmental change, to enact hospital change. All these things are going to cost a lot of money. And the infrastructure levy we have in place, that's why we have it in place. So we've got to start looking forward and saying, you know, if we want to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 80% by 2040, there's a lot of things we got to start doing, and they're going to cost money, which we haven't started putting away yet. So that's one thing we've got to look at. The other thing is that we're under the exact same pressures as every homeowner is. If your gas went up, think of how many buildings we own and our gas went up. If your electricity went up, think of how many buildings we own and our electricity went up. So, you know, if we're talking a 0.5% increase, I can guarantee you that everybody here who owns a home had a higher increase from gas and electricity than 0.5%. Plus your property increased in value probably 10 to 15% over the last year. And you're in real estate, aren't you?
I wish.
10 to 15%.
I'm a hard-working family man.
10 to 15%.
9 to 5, 2 kids in university, 1 in Hamilton, 1 in Toronto.
Yeah.
And how crushed I feel.
That's good.
This is the pain for majority of the residents you
Yeah.
represent. I would like to sit down, Jeff, we haven't had a coffee together. I think
to buy
sometimes
one.
it's a perspective. You think, when I'm talking about the second dwelling unit, I think we're on the same page. I never asked for doing any wrong business here.
No,
We're encouraging
but-
safe place to the residents who choose Brampton as their home.
Yeah, and
It's a
that's-
free.
Yeah,
This
no,
is the beauty of Canada.
I agree with you, Jadvinder. It's just, I'm a little bit like Councillor Medeiros. Everybody keeps asking for zero tax, zero tax, zero tax. But we've all got extra that we have to pay. So, you know, we will do the best we possibly can, but keep in mind there's a lot of pressures on the city, just like every homeowner has a lot of pressures as well. So we'll do our best to
Agreed.
keep it low.
Go with the inflation, people, and balance out.
Yep, inflation's good, yeah.
Thank you. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? I hope.
No, we've covered it
Paul,
all.
no?
Thank you.
No questions? Come on.
Thank you,
One question.
thank you,
Thank you.
Javinder.
Have a good one.
Next up on our list is Surjit Singh, Brampton resident.
Good evening, Mayor and the councils and the guests. So actually, I have over here one press release from the City Hall. There was released on the April the 19th in 2018. And that time, Mayor was Linda Jaffrey, and they put $150 million for the Brampton University plan. And the Brampton University was scrapped by the Doug Ford. And the funders are keep collecting. So where these funds are going now? And the city also installing the red light cameras, speeding cameras, and they having increasing the taxes and all that, and they're trying to have a sweets in both hands. So like think about the people, think about the Bramptonians, and so we need help. Like everybody's in Brampton, like we have the high auto insurances, and also I find out a while ago there was a Credit View Park was built. It was spent $70 million on the park. So do we need to spend that much money on these kind of parks? How many people goes to the parks? So if we can spend like $30,000-$40,000 on a park, and the rest of the $30,000-$40,000, like people are dying in the hospital, they're waiting emergency and all that, and that money could be spent on the healthcare system. So that's all. This is why. And also I try to talk to that time the consul, the former consul department and the mayor and all the consuls, but none of them reply about this. Because it was also a scam. When they announced the funding for $150,000, it was under the blanket of the university. But soon we got the property tax statement. It was written over there. It was for libraries and transit hub. And there's on the page number 3, there is Ellen Moore replied to my email. And she said these funds were not for the university. It was totally scam.
Okay, Councillor Vicente and then Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With respect to the question for the $150 million that the previous council had allocated for the Ryerson plan, perhaps the treasurer can explain where that money is and where it's at.
Through the chair, so there's effectively two pieces to Ryerson, and I think a lot of people get this confused. There's the one component which is the university, and then there's the city component, which is sort of a complementary project, which is the Center for Innovation. The $50 million amount that was approved in principle was coming from our legacy fund. We've since committed $5 million of that towards the Cybersecure Catalyst, Rogers Cybersecure Catalyst, which is a partnership with the city and Rogers and Ryerson. And the balance, and all of those funds still reside in that legacy fund. We're obviously bringing in the money to fund the Cybersecure Catalysts on an annual basis. The $100 million actually, which was originally approved, actually through 2019, we actually did a budget amendment, so it's actually $160 million now because we've added some additional scope to the project, as well as added a transit mobility hub to that project as well. So $30 million for each of those increases in scope. That project is funded from a combination of federal gas tax, debt financing. We've utilized some DCs, as well as for the transit component, the ISIP funding we've identified for that project. So that project sits approved in our capital budget as it stands now. And there's work that's been underway. Obviously, there's been some land acquisition that's taken place. There's other preliminary works that are underway for that project.
Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
But it was a totally scam. Like, to be honestly, it was those funds were collected under the blanket of university name. Thank you. Any other questions?
Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for your delegation. I think we understand your frustration when we're talking about healthcare. And so, you know, we understand, and we're constantly working with other levels of government who it's in their mandate to provide healthcare to our citizens here in Brampton. Just with respect to the Credit View Activity Hub, 70 million doesn't sound right. Can I
That
get,
was told by your engineer, he was over there, I was over there also covering the news and all that.
okay, if I can just get a confirmation of how much it cost us to build Credit View Activity Hub?
Through the chair, I will confirm that. As per my understanding, we spent about $15 million, but I'll get the proper numbers.
15?
Yep,
Yeah.
12 to 15.
Are you referring to Embleton, Mississauga, which is in the budget? There's a 70 million ask
No,
for
there was a
2021.
credit view, like, there was just, last year, like, somewhere, it's a
Mount
credit.
Pleasant.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's in our area. We
In-
didn't spend 70 million yet.
but that was
But-
told by your engineer, like, I'm not making up from my own end.
I wish that cost 30,000. We build a lot more, but that's another way, another reason the city of Brampton is building hubs like this, so we can get more people out and to be more active. So then, essentially, we hope that carries on in the health of the citizens of Brampton to get them out, and we have some great exercise equipment out there and great walking trails, so we're doing our part.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more questions, we'll go to the next delegation, which is Sylvia Roberts.
Hello, my name is Sylvia. I'm a resident of Ward 3. This is basically the comparison that Councillor Palashi was looking for. And there's a second PowerPoint. If I could get an additional 5 minutes, that would be great.
Question was?
So I actually have two delegations here, and they're both rather extensive. If I can get 10 minutes.
So,
Or two
looking, I think
delegations.
we've been doing 1 minute. We do, yeah. We do have our fire chief who needs to make a presentation, so we've been doing 1 minute extensions. If that's okay, we can extend it to 6. There's already another delegation. Clerk, yeah. We still have 2 more delegations, and we have 2 presentations today. And I would say, Sylvia, normally we have 1 deputation. You've already given a deputation on the budget, but we thought we wanted to hear from you again.
These
and
are
so
in
we-
reaction to things that came up after the window, after the normally you'd submit these.
So we've made an exception to hear you a second time.
Thank you. Okay, I'll try to do it in 6 minutes. So this is the chart in your budget. This is from BMA Management Consulting. This is Toronto using their data. As you can see, they included a lot more municipalities. It looks like Brampton is a bit higher than the average. When you actually look at the amounts paid, Brampton is actually the closest to average among the municipalities in the greater Golden Horseshoe. They also threw in Ottawa. This is the property tax rate in Brampton. As you can see, it has gone down basically every year for 10 years, largely because the region and the province have been taking less. So Brampton's take has roughly been flat. Overall, it's gone down. So this is the same, this is Toronto's data chart, but in a bar chart. You can see more of it in a minute. So this is the units, the property taxes per unit. When you actually adjust for population size, you'll notice Brampton is actually on the far left. The reason is Brampton has substantially higher households. So for most things, that doesn't matter. But it's a case of when you're doing things like the large bins that we have here, which are included for free, Toronto charges $500 a year for that. So that's a bit of money right there that people are getting included. If you unbundle and make it a rate, people really aren't saving money, so people don't realize all the services that they're getting. This is restricting it, this is similar information, but restricted to just the ones that were picked for the city's BMA. So the average is $5,005, Brampton is $5,013. So basically dead on for average. Here's the cost of water and wastewater. This is also from BMA. If you'll notice, Brampton and Mississauga are dramatically less. So Toronto, it's cheaper than Toronto by $250. If you look at the suburbs, you're looking at $300. We're like $300 or more. That is a lot of money. When you include property and water, you'll notice Brampton is actually now several $100s below the average for those. This is what happens when you look at, when you divide the property and water rates per capita. You'll notice Brampton is way at the end. The actual average of this chart is over $2,000, and Brampton's not even $1,600. So on a per capita basis, we're actually paying $400 less. So to say it's high, you need to look at more data. And I know some members of council have been looking at that. Here's budget and demographics. So our demographics are based on region of Peel data, which is based on provincial data, and it's outdated and wrong. It's from a 2013 report based on 2011 census data. So a lot of our metrics are based on per capita numbers. If we don't know how many people are actually living here, we're off by, say, 40,000, that makes a big difference. So this is what the projected population is for Brampton. For 2021, I believe this was shown in the ward projections, so 684,000 basically. This is Stats Canada data. We're actually over that number. We have now surpassed by Stats Canada data, surpassed Vancouver in population, as I had mentioned previously. It's growing quite fast. So how can we have such different numbers? This is the region data. So what you'll see is they're just looking at the census modified by population counts, and the problem with that is it doesn't count international students whatsoever in there. So it's how can just international students skew it? Yeah, so you'll notice 18,000 for Peel. Brampton made up, I think, 75 to 80% of the growth in Peel in this period. So that is a substantial portion of the growth. It's also using provincial estimates for how many people live in a household, which is substantially too low for Brampton, as we have basically the highest household size in the entire province. So this is international study permits. As you can see, the number of students from India went from less than 50,000 to over 200,000. Unsurprisingly, a chunk of them are coming here. And they're going to it's going to Sheridan, but it's not just Sheridan. We also have York, Humber. There's actually 16 institutions in Brampton that are able to functionally issue student visas. That's a lot, and that's where most of the growth is coming from, but we're not counting this. So why does this matter? Metrolinx, when it does its review on whether a BRT line, for example, makes sense, it's using that data from 2013 to make those estimates to project what the population is. So the city needs to figure out this data and get the province to move on to it, because otherwise you're looking at losing out on several $100 million in funding. Thank you, that's my delegation. Any questions?
Councilor Medeiros.
Thank you, Mayor. I tell you, there are moments where, you know, I wouldn't say I dread, but I'm concerned about what questions you're going to ask. And there's other times that you come with bearing of good news, and certainly, you know, I would probably do a faux pas and request that, you know, I almost look at staff as like, when are we going to pick up this guy and bring him to the city? You know, it's just, I sit there and it's almost, you keep everyone on their toes, and it's, you come with this amazing information. So with all this said, so you brought some interesting different data sets. And, you know, if you were to sort of to a layperson like myself, who, you know, I appreciate everything you brought here. So when you make a statement that, you know, City of Brampton, we're on the higher end, from what I got from everything was the variables, we're not comparing apples to apples. So actually, we're not on the high end, and we're actually, in some cases, on the lower end. Is that accurate based on what you say, or can you phrase basically what you just tried presenting to us today?
Yeah, it's when you look at the services delivered by the City of Brampton to residents and you consider how many people live in the households, we're actually average or below average. The rates are very misleading because the city chooses its target funding and then looks at the impact assessment, and that's how it gets the rates. In other jurisdictions, you'll just set the rates and that's what your revenue is. But here it's, you set your target funding and then the rates. That's why our rate, why it's like people are complaining, well, every year property taxes go up, and yet the rate has actually gone from 1.25% to now it's less than 1%. So there needs to be more education on how property tax works. it's not a very transparent system.
So, and I guess through the mayor, and I thank you for that. So, I think that's a powerful statement, what you just stated. In terms of when we're looking at key investments, and we know, I know you're one of the strongest advocates for transit. In terms of priority areas, with this situation that we're dealing with the city and the demographics, and you talk about all the students that are coming in and so on and so on. From a priority, speak to me about this transit should be, if we were talking about our top three, and we identify as our top three, tell me how important transit is in this scheme in which we're looking at, because that's one of the areas that we highly subsidize. And, we constantly get, and I constantly get the pushback in terms of, well, we're basically subsidizing something. I don't take transit, but why should we take transit? But we know all the spin-off effects. But if you can just, with this looking, are we on the right path in making those key investments? And talk to me about the zero, why you'd be concerned about the zero.
So one of the things to keep in mind is that when you compare Brampton Transit's fare box recovery to basically every city in Canada, when you look at suburban transit systems, Brampton is leaps and bounds ahead of them. Most of the other systems struggle to get 45%, where some years we've been as high as 59% for fare box recovery. So it's, in terms of for like suburbs, we are doing a very good job at those numbers. If you're dealing with students, because they're immigrants, the car insurance for them would be absolutely astronomical. You're probably looking at 10, maybe at minimum for the cost of a car, even something cheap, maybe even 15 grand. So it's the transit pass is important. One thing that I didn't quite touch on this is, so we built about 3,000 units for the census period here. We added 30,000 people, so about 10 people per unit. So development slowing down is not going to fix anything, because these visa permits get approved and then they get to find housing here. So regardless of what happens with the housing, they're going to keep coming. So we need not just a student housing policy, but we need to work with developers to come up with something that will financially work, specifically they can get around. As I think Mr. Sodi mentioned, owning a car is extremely expensive, and improving transit will make life more affordable for people. So you're paying $1,500 when you count in everyone's contribution, the city, the province, the federal government, even counting the depreciation on your capital assets, you're looking at $3,400, where CAA is looking at like $10,000 per person. So if you look at a lot of places where the residents are short on money, one of the fastest ways you can improve affordability is improving transit. For example, the airport was here, and so they're like, look, if you do this extension, you will make transit more accessible for like 5,000 people just for the airport. But then if I want to move here, and so a lot of the big companies want to know, what is your transit like? And so you can actually have economic development, wherever they are in this room. You pick them up from the airport in Zoom, and you actually show them around the city. I believe your studies have shown that residents actually really like Zoom, and that's one of the things they take pride in. Realistically, if you went to NACTO, you could take what Brampton Transit has done and present it to other cities, and transit agencies from across the US and Canada would be lining up, because the grid system we moved to I think about 15 years ago is what they're looking at now. And so by showing them what we've done, they will be showing up, and they will want to know what you're doing, because in the US, they're recovering like 20% of the fare box. Here it's 50%, and we deliver better service.
Well said. Anyways, I thank you very much, and I clearly take your message loud and clear, and thank you for the opportunity to educate many of us about, when we're talking about property tax, the complete picture. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Medeiros. Councilor Singh.
Yeah, I just, you brought up, for the transit, I wholeheartedly agree with what you're saying. So for for next budget, because I think we're going to start earlier this year, perhaps we could get a presentation, I won't request for it now, just on our tax competitiveness from staff. And we'll have your delegation on deck too. We have Mayor Brown's also chart that a lot of delegations have also used in their delegation. And but if we could just get staff to do a presentation before at the start of the 2021 budget, just more objective and sort of based on other studies where we actually stand, I think it'll be helpful for council because you see that's a point of discussion.
Yeah, through the chair, I mean, to be objective, obviously, I would just look at that independent study and pull the data. I don't want to make a judgment call on it. I just want to pull the data and we can show it.
And just be fair, that's not my chart, that's the BMA consultants, which is the report that was referenced, which was provided to me by our city staff.
All of my numbers were also from the report too, for your pleasure.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're seeing some additional details that are adding context for me in particular. So I think it's important that we have the full information. So next time for the 2021 budget, I think it'll be helpful.
There's an important disclaimer, this was just residential, and so the commercial situation may be different, and I don't want this to be taken as saying anything whatsoever on the commercial situation.
Yeah, and exactly. So if we could just get a presentation, I think it'll be informative.
Councilor Pleshy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll support the presentation at 2021, but what I'm looking for is for that study to be provided to members tomorrow. If that's, I don't think that's unreasonable. No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Is that different? Yeah.
I understand from the clerk there's an added delegation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, it's Malcolm Hamilton, Brampton resident.
Malcolm Hamilton. About environmental considerations on the budget.
Your Worship, councillors, staff, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Malcolm Hamilton, and I'm here tonight just as a private citizen, only one of some 640,000 plus Bramptonians. I've lived here since 1961, and I'm not planning on moving. I've been paying property taxes for nearly 40 years, and I've done that without complaint or suggestion. This year I've decided to come and to ask you to raise them. I'm retired on a fixed income, and I'm asking you to considering earmarking money for environmental coordination, planning, infrastructure, staffing, research, supporting citizen NGOs, and efforts on the environment. After graduating from Brampton Centennial and taking environmental science with Ken Willans, I went to the University of Waterloo, and it was there that I first heard the phrase global warming. Recently, I had cause to contact that same professor who taught me then, and he was very concerned about Canada's half-hearted response to climate change. He was happy to see Brampton's 2040 vision and had questions about how robustly staffed the effort was. I was uncertain. To use Professor Ledru's terms, are we robustly resourced? We're at a tipping point environmentally. If we don't do it this year, when are we going to start to deal with it? Scientists like Professor Ledru, who worked for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change that won the Nobel Peace Prize for the Inconvenient Truth, are concerned that human-made carbon dioxide will acidify oceans, melt permafrost, releasing methane, which is an even stronger greenhouse gas. But he said cities are the key. The choices you will make in the next 2 days will indicate how serious Brampton is about climate change. I encourage you to be bold. Earmark a portion of the 2020 property tax for the environment and support Brampton taking a significant leadership role. It would be safe to have a no tax increase, or a modest one, placating the two interest groups somewhat. But I'm asking you to think not just 2 years down the road to the next election, not 10 or 30, but a generation away. Build environmentally friendly infrastructure and plan in $2020 and not $2,100, leaving it to our grandchildren to deal with because of our timid response. We will not sit in the shade of trees we plant today, but plant them we must. Thank you for your time and hard work. I'm proud of this city's efforts to become more livable and sustainable. Courage, ladies and gentlemen. We depend on your broader vision to make a difference here. Thank you.
Councilman Dearest.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thank you for the delegation. I think what I got from it was, we declared a climate emergency, so now walk the talk. And you essentially talked about us putting investments and ensuring that we don't compromise these investments, because we know every sort of level of government is struggling with the idea of how to deal with climate change and what is sort of our part in this whole. Are there specific areas, and I know we had, you know, the fortune, but I think for everyone's benefit, you identified a couple of different interesting things to do with environmental investment. And I know more specifically, you talked about planning. Can you just share with everyone where you think that we should make that key investment, especially in the planning area?
Thank you for that question. One of the things that Professor LeDroux talked about, one of the things I was taught at Waterloo when I was sent away back in 1975 to Waterloo, was that cities have to think in terms of increasing population density at nodal points or focal points, and have them heavily resourced by mass transit. Trying to redo that, the building that we're already doing in 2100, because we need to increase density, is just incredibly expensive. London, England is going through that right now, looking at their response to sea level rise. And what they have to do now is horrendously expensive. We have an opportunity, while we're still building out, to make significant changes and to plan sort of a city within a city, a neighborhood within the city. I know we've done it in some places, and we're planning on doing it in a linear model along Queen Street, but that's going to make a difference. When we plant trees, when we make the cities walkable and livable, Jane Jacobs had said, basically, we connect with the cities. And she was very, very high on Brampton. She thought Brampton was fantastic because we were doing a lot of those principles. We were considering them when we were having businesses and front offices located the same place at the factory floor that the warehouse at the planning department is. They're all in one spot. And to be quite honest with you, I'm really, this is an appeal for a broader vision. I know that doing a budget is kind of like making sausages, and you don't really want to see how it's done. But when it comes down to it, I'm asking you to look beyond that, take away the blinders for a bit, and just have a look farther down the road to make a difference in our grandchildren's lives.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Medeiros. Councilor Willens.
Thank you, Malcolm, for coming in. Through you, Mr. Mayor. You're absolutely right. I think we need to look at it differently in Brampton, a little different than what other municipalities may be thinking. We do have a robust climate action plan with our CERP program, as you're well aware of it. I think maybe we should look at it. Maybe this can get some of our department heads thinking about maybe it shouldn't just be a particular staff member that sits in the environmental side, but maybe somebody that coordinates all departments to look through everything out of an environmental lens, because we've got to take down the silos between the departments and put sustainability first in everything we do. I know and hopefully when CERP comes to council, and this council will endorse it in May, and that will embed it into our official plan, and then perhaps we can look at it then, and that maybe we could get a coordinator that would be specifically to deal with what we can look at to build a resiliency in Brampton when it comes to climate change. So thank you for coming in. You made some great points, and obviously my father taught you well.
I'm not going to argue with you on that. The idea of a sustainability coordinator was one of the things that Professor LeDroux talked about, so that we won't be stumbling over ourselves. Mayor, when you were talking the other day I was here, you mentioned the fact that you were looking at building a new depot for buses, and the electric infrastructure is a part of that, but hadn't been worked in. Some sort of a sustainability coordinator is really what we need, I guess, in that sense, that it can run things through an environmental lens when making a decision. And not only looking for, yes, it's going to be more expensive now, but take a look down the road what the payoff is. I think that's a significant improvement. And I haven't thrown out any numbers here. I mean, Councillor Bowman has talked about the fact that we have to get the money going, we have to put it aside, we have to invest it. I would throw out the idea of 1/4% being set aside for environmental issues. And getting that money out there, and mobilizing the population of 640 or 680 or 690,000, get the people involved. This is our city. This is not just your city. This is not the staff city. This is our city.
Thank you. Thank you, Malcolm. And I would note before we go to the fire presentation that we've heard from a number of notable people who visited our community, whether it's the Minister of the Environment or David Suzuki, that there's no contradiction in being progressive on environmental issues and a good economy and being good financial stewards. You know, some people say it's a choice of finances or the environment. That's a false choice because you look at the electric bus example, we'll use less fuel. It will save us money. And so smart environmental choices is not a choice of caring for the environment or trying to find savings for the taxpayer. I think the choices we make today will save taxpayers significantly. And so I always like to quote our environment minister in highlighting that the both are complementary. We now have some more departmental presentations, and we have our fire chief up next. I understand he's a bit under the weather, and yet he's still
battling the flu.
Battling the
yeah,
flu,
so
but did not
try
want
not to run out.
But our first responders are always on call.
Yeah, I'll get some of that after. Thank you, Mayor Brown, members of council. Pleased to present our 2020 operating budget today. Our expenditures total $81.6 million, and you can see there the majority is allocated for wages and benefits. We have a $2.3 million variance this year, with 2% of that total being used for user fees. The rest of our service at $80 million is funded through property taxes. If you look at our budget drivers, our major budget driver is the collective agreement. I know the mayor's mentioned, along with QP and ATU, that we do have a 5-year collective agreement with our association, and approximately 95% of our staff fall under the provisions of the collective agreement. We're also striving to maintain our service levels with our population growth, and thanking council over the past 3 years, we've added 72 frontline staff in the fire service to make sure that we meet our service delivery and our response time objectives. Also, we talked earlier today in our growing city about second units and BLRs. We see a growing increase in terms of complaints and requests for inspection, which were legislated to complete under the fire code, but we've assigned 5 staff to assist with Paul Morrison and Rick Kennard's second unit task force. So I think that's a positive example of some horizontal collaboration, and I think we're making a difference in the community. We're also striving to maintain our levels of training in line with industry best practices, which would be our NFPA certification, so that our firefighters are trained to and certified to NFPA standards. We're also ensuring that we maintain our apparatus and equipment so that we can respond to over 22,000 emergencies per year. And lastly, I wanted to mention that we're taking a preventative approach to health and wellness, and what we're trying to do through a joint labor management initiative is implement proactive cancer screening. And we started that late last year, and I really think that not only is that going to save firefighters' lives, but I think that's also going to contribute to a positive impact on our WSIB costs and some of our operating costs. So it's an exciting initiative that I think we're the first that I know of in Canada to do anything of that sort. If we look at our 2020 budget goals, our main goal is ultimately to be a progressive public safety leader while protecting our community. And to do this, we're going to provide the highest level education, prevention, and emergency response services possible, with a continued emphasis on meeting our legislative requirements, on building strong community connections, on taking a collective approach to community safety, and ultimately we remain cognizant of our fiscal responsibility for the $81 million it costs to run our fire service. There we go. Our budget highlights. Our budget, that increase of $2.3 million that I talked about earlier, is really the result of the 4 items here on this page. That is not me as a little child in the fire chief uniform, but it is a nice coat. Our compensation adjustments result from the collective agreement. Again, 95% of our staff fall under the provisions of the collective agreement. We're also looking to strengthen our fire and life safety division by adding a dedicated division chief to help improve our community outreach, and build on programs like our Hot Zone program, where we use targeted education, data, marketing to try to affect fire safety behavior changes in the city. And I'm pleased to say overall we're already noticing a reduction in fires in those 3 areas over the first 2 years. And we'll come back to council after 5 years and update everyone on how that works. We're increasing our user fees, and this aligns with KPMG and Ernst & Young studies and the neighboring municipalities for a revenue increase of approximately $564,000 in new revenue. Under the well-run city, I think it's important to note through KPMG that they noted that we're one of the leaders in service delivery. And then the second point we're very proud of, Brampton Fire is an effective organization consistently demonstrating high levels of operational and fiscal effectiveness and innovative approach to service delivery and wellness services. And Brampton Fire is a leader in Ontario, if not more broadly, and highly effective. So we are proud of that. We do take pride in being as efficient and effective as we possibly can. And council will note that later this year, we're going to come back with our 5-year master plan and outline where we're going over the next 5 years. In terms of a healthy and safe community, we're going to, again, continue with our mission, right, to deliver the highest level of emergency response, prevention, and education services we can. We're going to continue to align our community safety efforts with the region's well-being, community safety and well-being plan. And we're going to continue the development of the Lighthouse program, which we've already seen replicated 12 times across Canada, something we're very proud of as we were the first to do that program. And we've talked a lot about a green city, and we know that we have a role in the community emissions and energy reduction plan. And a couple of things we're doing here, we're moving to try to green our fire prevention fleet, starting this year and fully by 2025. We're also implementing car sharing technology to reduce the overall number of cars needed, and idle reduction technology in our fire trucks to result in less emissions. And the city is a mosaic. Its community engagement is a priority for us as a department. And if you look at things that we do, such as the Fire Weekend Academy, the EMS Camp for Kids, or the Chiefs Community Engagement Panel, we really care about connecting with those that we serve. So to recap, again, $81.6 million in expenditures offset by the $1.48 million in user fees. And that is our 2020 operating budget. And just want to recognize the great work our staff do each and every day when they're out there 24/7 serving the community. So thank them. That's all I have. Thank you.
We have a few questions. Councillor Paleschi.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, you okay?
Yep.
Feeling okay?
I'm not going to throw up, I don't think yet, so I'm okay.
Yeah, please don't.
I'll go out.
So Chief, and I know you're sick, and I'm probably not going to take it easy on you.
No, it's okay.
Dispatch equipment. Talk to me about dispatch equipment, Chief, because every year it's in the budget. You know, before you, the last chief was bringing forward upgraded dispatch equipment, new dispatch equipment. When is it going to end?
Through the chair, I don't see it in the foreseeable future, to be honest. It's very technologically advanced equipment that we have to continuously replace. With next generation 911 coming in, that's mandated by the CRTC. So 911 callers can now send text, well, not right now, but when it comes in, text and videos to our dispatchers. So that's going to provide a whole host of challenges for us that we're working with PRP, with the police and other fire services, with the CRTC, to see exactly what that looks like. But we expect that to come in somewhere between 2021 to 2023. We've also implemented the new CAD that was approved. Well, sorry, we're purchasing the new CAD that was approved in the 2018 budget. And again, our dispatch works with Brampton, Mississauga, and Caledon Fire. And we take in about 168,000 calls per year. We respond between those three services to about 70,000 emergencies. So it's very, if anybody's had a chance to be up and see it, it's very technically detailed. And I know we have 400,000 approximately in our capital request for next generation 911 related equipment as we prepare to see exactly what that looks like. And it's still a bit of an unknown now, but we are working closely with the stakeholders to make sure we can meet those needs.
And when are we planning on having the funds returned from Mississauga and Caledon?
Sure. So there's 2.6 million in there that's, as we purchase the CAD, we're overseeing the procurement. And then we will invoice Mississauga and Caledon, and then that money will be returned to us. I might look to my finance partners to see exactly when that money comes back. I'm not sure when the invoice gets issued, to be honest.
Through the chair, so that'll be work we would coordinate with the fire department and our teams to determine when that invoice needs to be sent, when the work's completed, and then we would obviously expect the payment.
And there's no discussion on pushing that off or making it collecting the funds as kind of like a user fee, like as the calls come in?
No, through the chair, we've already signed a memorandum of agreement.
Perfect.
So it's all set. It's simply a financial transaction.
Excellent. Chief, you had mentioned the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan.
Yes.
And I guess that's just one of many of the other initiatives that are that we're doing at the city. Can you talk a little bit more about some of the other things that are happening and that we're reaching out with and tackling?
Yeah, through the chair. So part of Rasmeen is here, and I'll let her touch on in a minute because she is our community safety advisor and definitely does a tremendous job. But we work with the Brampton Community Safety Committee, and Rasmeen is part of the Region's Community Safety Wellbeing Plan Committee. And maybe I'll let her touch on a few initiatives that we're doing right now with community safety.
Through the chair, so some of the initiatives that we're currently working on is participating in the virtual community hub, which was approved in November. We're also working on the motion that was presented recently about the domestic violence awareness campaign. We are also participating on a number of regional tables. Recently, the Peel Integrated Drug Strategy, the Peel Poverty Reduction Committee table, and as well as two action tables that are being led by the larger Community Safety and Wellbeing System Leadership Table, which it's the Governance and Operations Action Table, and as well as the Family Violence Action Table. So those are just some of the external initiatives that we are moving forward with, but we're also supporting internal staff with numerous things and participating as subject matter experts.
So the list goes on and on and on. Some of the great, fantastic things that are coming out of your department, Chief, and I know that fire is kind of that front line, but safety, the safety side of it is so important. When we're talking to residents in our community, it's one of the main things that you hear at the doors. So I think that I'd like to see maybe in future reports highlighting some of those initiatives, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that are coming, and I'm not putting down an ask, Peter. I'm just maybe a little bit of a request, but it's nothing to be jotted down. I'm just maybe suggesting that.
Sure. Through the chair, perhaps after we have a community safety advisory meeting at the end of March, perhaps after that we can provide a briefing note or an update to council, kind of collectively what's happened, maybe the status of some of those initiatives that are going on, and how we're going to go forward.
Excellent. And then just lastly, the CRTC, what do you need from us to try and have some of that cost recovered? What can we do to support you and try and reach out? And I know they're implementing, so I think they should pay for it.
Through the chair, we appreciate that. Any funding any advocacy that could be done, with the federal or provincial counterparts to help offset some of that funding. As a municipal fire service, we really don't get funded by anything other than, as you can see, the property tax there and a very small 2% through our user fees. So we don't get provincial grants or federal grants, and it's a challenge, I know, for all fire services, that if we could get more, that would definitely help out.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, to the CAO's office, if we can try and reach out, have that discussion, talk to government relations, see if there's a possibility that some of this funding can be cost recovered through CRTC. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Willens.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll try and keep it quick. Bill, it looks like you're going to collapse up there.
No, it's okay.
But maybe not for this budget, but maybe for moving forward in 2021. I know you and I have talked about the different type of equipment, different type of fire trucks that are displayed at various shows. Maybe keep an eye out, sort of pencil mark some shows that are coming up. I know there's one coming up in the States, I think FDIC, and then there's also the one in Hanover, Germany. It talks about different types of equipment, because as we intensify some of our neighborhoods, make our neighborhoods more pedestrian friendly, more active transportation, it's going to get cumbersome for some of these trucks to get around some of these communities. So maybe there's ways we can look at smaller vehicles for certain areas, obviously not for the full alarm fires, but maybe for some of these, because I know that Germany does have some fire trucks that have the same capacity, I think, for some smaller fires and smaller emergencies, but are able to get down some of the narrow streets and that. So maybe that's something you can earmark for future budgets, because I think you're putting the fire department we're way ahead of a lot of other municipalities, and you've done a great job with yourself and previous chiefs to move us forward, so we might as well be innovative when we're moving forward and trying to make it our fleets as green as they can as well, but still give us the service that our residents are used to having, so.
Yeah, through the chair, the first electric fire truck is actually a prototype, so we're gonna try to get it to come by this summer or fall to see what it looks like. It's still unknown, it's making its rounds, I think it's starting out in Vancouver. So that'll be interesting, but we've also, in the meantime, we're shortening down some of our actual fire apparatus to navigate any of the congested areas, changing where we put the pump panel on fire trucks to pick up 2 or 3 feet wherever we can. So we are trying, even with our current fleet that we buy, to make them a little bit leaner, I would say.
Because I know I think it was last term of council, we introduced the smaller vehicles, the pickups for the quick response, perhaps where we don't need to send out a full truck. And that was pretty successful. I know it doesn't work on all applications, but I know that helped for quick calls to get out to see if it's needed for a full truck to come out. That certainly does save a lot of money when you don't have to send 4 firemen with a big truck or 2 trucks out if we can. Firefighters, so fire persons. Okay, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Seeing no more questions, thank you, Chief. Now, I'm looking to council. We have the Planning Development Services report. Do you want to do that tomorrow morning, or do you want to do that now? Richard, how long is the presentation? So I'll tell you what, we'll do the presentation now. If there's questions, we'll have to do them tomorrow. For the presentations.
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, there still are 5 staff reports to consider, as well as the series of recommendations.
So we have scheduled till 9. He said it's a 20-minute report, so we can do that, and we'll just reserve any questions for tomorrow if there are, and there may not be questions. There is an important fundraiser for the hospital tomorrow that we're trying to be mindful of.
Good evening, Mayor Brown, members of Budget Committee, the public, and fellow members of city staff. It is a pleasure to be here today to present the Planning and Development Services 2020 operating budget. We are your team responsible for transforming council and the community's vision for Brampton into implementable plans that shape and guide investment decisions across our community. Currently underway in our shop are a multitude of integrated projects that directly support council's direction for sustainable growth and development, including the official plan update. This is an essential step to realizing and driving the implementation of Vision 2040 in every service we deliver here in Brampton, as it will set the guiding policy framework for all planning decisions. Modernization of the zoning bylaw, the largest and most comprehensive update in decades. This will define progressive community development standards across our community, while reducing red tape in terms of unnecessary applications, increase efficiencies in terms of simplifying review processes, and create the conditions necessary to drive economic investment efforts forward. The Heritage Heights Secondary Plan. This will set the stage for one of the last undeveloped areas in our community to one day soon become home to over 40,000 Bramptonians. This will also be a next generation community that will showcase the world a modernized and integrated active transportation network that is designed for maximum connectivity and ease of use. The Queen Street Precinct Plan. This is fundamentally transforming the way in which we integrate transportation in built form to maximize mobility options for residents in our community and drive critical high-density investments into central urban neighborhoods, reimagining our city from the inside out. And the backbone to our business, every day we work to build positive relationships with our residents and businesses through the delivery of plan review and inspection services by our highly skilled review teams. Together they review and issue thousands of applications and permits each and every year, while ensuring safe and accessible construction that provides jobs and homes across our community. Together, our teams are building the foundation and shaping the key building blocks that are transforming Brampton into an industry leader in modern, progressive, and effective city building strategies. In terms of our budget, the investment required to help transform Brampton from vision to bricks and mortars is $23.3 million, with 93% funding coming from user fees, service charges, and contributions from reserves. It's important to note that the Building Services Department is an enterprise service whereby 100% of the expenditures are recovered by building permit fees. Through a fee review of the Planning Department this quarter, we will be exploring opportunities to move the Planning Services Group to an enterprise model funded by planning fees, thereby further reducing our impact on taxes to residents to deliver community planning and building services in the future. One of the key drivers, growth, is a good news story, attributable to the Council's leadership in creating trust and confidence in the business community to invest in Brampton. Building construction values significantly increased from $0.8 billion in 2018 to more than double in 2019 at $1.8 billion. In addition, we've seen an increase in development planning applications from 579 in 2018 to 684 in 2019. As well, in 2019, through Council's leadership, we settled 11 appeals at the LPAT board, with 4 more anticipated in early 2020. These are indicators that folks want to get things done. The other good news is that Brampton residents want to build second suites in accordance with our building and fire codes to ensure their tenants are safe. As Councillor Singh noted this morning, people want to register their second units. We've seen over the last 3 years a doubling of permit activity in this area. It's interesting to note that two-unit applications have increased significantly. For example, January 2018, we had 24 applications. January 2019, we had 150 applications. This January alone, we had 273 applications. The major goals we have in 2020 include delivering on Council's terms of priorities and, equally important, implementing the recommendations of the service review currently nearing completion. We'll see an overhaul of our development services to streamline processes in order to improve customer service. We will do this by driving accountability across the organization and every level of the review services, and we'll collect and actively analyze performance data to demonstrate accountability and value to the community. We'll achieve this all the while delivering on our core services to build a better Brampton. Our key operating priority in 2020 is to set the conditions for investment in Brampton through the reduction of barriers in our processing of applications and overhauling our moldy and outdated policies that have not kept pace with the need to grow through intensification and not outwards through sprawl. I have a dynamic and energized team that is responsible for overseeing the majority of Council's priorities around growth and development. We have started and are making progress on many initiatives and that are generally tracking. Under the Opportunities pillar, finalizing the citywide development design guidelines in Q4 2021, finalizing Brampton's affordable housing strategy in Q4 2020, developing a coordinated implementation framework for downtown Brampton, including an integrated mobility hub study by Q4 2022, completing community improvement plans that will stimulate strategic investment in the city by Q1 2021, expanding the development permit system to expedite the right type of investment in key areas such as the Queen Street by Q4 2021. Under the Green pillar, expanding the Urban Design Awards to highlight innovative developments, which was held in Q3 2019. The next one will be in 2 years. Establishing ongoing monitoring of intensification and greenfield density by Q4 2020. Under the Healthy and Safe pillar, modernizing group home and lodging house policies that will support affordable and diverse housing options for residents in 2020. Updating the Transportation Master Plan to prioritize active transportation and non-auto modes by Q4 2021. Under the Well-Run City pillar, enhancing mobility inspections through an online inspectors app in Q2 2020. Implementing a queue management system and online appointing booking in Q2 2020, Under the Mosaic pillar, ongoing implementation of the age-friendly strategy, as well as implementing 10 neighborhood partnerships through the Nurturing Neighborhood programs with reporting on program outcomes in April 2020. The Planning and Development Services budget is largely based on labor costs. As noted earlier, 93% of the department's budget is recovered through revenues. We are seeking additional resources to meet demand in the building department and in the planning department to respond to the province's Bill 108 requirements for shorter application review times. In conclusion, Mayor Brown and members of Budget Committee, 2020 will be a transformational year for the Planning and Development Services Department. Among the many projects underway, we will continue to work on innovative and progressive policies, such as the Queen Street Precinct Plan, that will see the first development permit system applied to an intensification corridor, allowing for the pre-zoning of the lands to expedite development in a planned manner. And we will continue to transform the development review processes to be more transparent, accountable, responsive to customer needs through the application of service standards and the monitoring of performance metrics. Jane Jacobs once said, "Lively, diverse, intense cities contain the seeds of their own regeneration, with energy enough to carry over for problems and needs outside themselves." Together, Council has planted the seeds for Brampton's regeneration with the energy and unwavering commitment to see their community grow, prosper, and succeed as an outstanding community of choice here in Ontario. I'm as excited and energized as Council and my teams in the Planning and Development Services Department as we continue to move Brampton forward. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a question from Councillor Vicente.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On your new positions, 18 for 2020, approximately how many are going into which departments?
So we have, through the chair, we have, Councillor Vicente, we have 12 staff going to the building department. Right now, within the building department, we have span of control issues with respect to the number of inspectors that report to supervisors, so we need to add additional supervisors. We also want to move to a model of generalists. I think you heard that term before, where basically one inspector can do all of the components of an inspection in a second suite, for example, so that the customer just, or the homeowner just sees one inspector coming to the house. This will allow for a more efficient and customer service friendly response. And so on the planning side, then we have the six staff there will be in the planning side of it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Bowman.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation, Richard. I just got one question under the 2020 capital budget for Urban Design Standards Manual, $250,000.
So through the chair, I'll just ask Bob, Director of Policy, to respond to that.
Sure, thank you, through the chair. So they are a fairly extensive range of documents to put together. It is one of the ones that we are looking to advance in a bit of a different way. So what we're actually doing with that is starting with the Queen Street Precinct Plan. That we've actually resourced in-house. So we're starting with more of a specific site. So I don't know for sure that we'll use all of the $250,000. Some of it may go to contract staff. So we are shifting the way that we do things. But that is what has been budgeted to get it done, and that is a typical amount to get a manual like that complete.
Okay, just to me, it just seems like a pretty big chunk of change to get a manual, you know, based on environmental standards, public realms, streetscapes, public-private developments. I'm sure a lot of communities have done this type of work previously that might inform some of the work and decisions that we make. So, but I'll leave that up to you guys. Thank you.
Councillor Fertini.
Thank you, Mr. Just quickly, Richard, are we going to have that online to see where the applications are? Is it going to be up and running this year?
So through the chair, yes, basically we've got the technology in place. We've been working through the back of house to make sure that it's working before we go out to the public to be able to access and to be able to submit documents electronically. Okay. So we should be in a position relatively soon to be able to engage yourselves in terms of actually being able to go online and seeing the status of where applications sit within the organization. And then we want to get out into the public so that the community can actually submit online applications and more efficient way of dealing with permits and things.
And they can follow from one department to another, like urban design, or where the application sits?
Through the chair, that's correct.
Great, thank you, great job.
Seeing no more questions, it is the public question period. Do we have questions about any decisions? We haven't made any decisions today. We received that, okay. Any questions? Seeing none. Just a few housekeeping matters. We're adjourned until tomorrow at 9:30. And to council, we do have the Osler Ski Day in the afternoon. So we're going to try to get everything done in the morning so that if members of council want to support the hospital in the afternoon, then we will be able to do so. I would note that Councillor Willens has been the lead on the ski day, and he won't be here tomorrow. But thank you for what you're doing for the hospital, Councillor Willens. Another last housekeeping note, we will be starting council late on Wednesday. The clerk's going to send out a note tomorrow because the region is making a major affordable housing announcement that Brampton is in partnership with and the federal government. And so the update's already gone out on Wednesday morning. So we're starting what time on? 10:30 on Wednesday. Thank you.